Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this easy, seamless top-down sweater. This is in the size medium. For today's project, I'm going to be using the Caron Macchiato Cakes, which is a bulky weight 5 yarn, and the color is boundless. And I'm using about 2 full skeins and a little bit of a third skein as well. And then for the materials, I'll be using a 5mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, scissors, and stitch markers. The first part of the sweater is making the ribbing of the collar. So first we'll make a slip knot and then grab your crochet hook and insert it into the hole. And then I will chain 11, and the amount of chains will determine the length of the collar. So if you want it longer, then you can add more chains, and vice versa. After you have 11 chains, place a half double crochet in the second chain from the hook. So yarn over, insert your crochet hook, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. Repeat this in the next chain, yarn over, insert crochet hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And repeat this in each chain across. After 11 half double crochets, this is what it looks like. Now we'll chain 1 and turn our work. For this next row, we'll be working a half double crochet in the back loops only. Yarn over, insert crochet hook into the back loop, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Again, into the back loop only. Continue inserting a back loop half double crochet all the way till the end of the row. As you work on these back loop half double crochets, you want to make sure that you have the correct number of stitches in each row. So I started off with 11 chains, and because we're chaining 1, you should have 1 less stitch. So each row I'll have 10 stitches total. Repeat this pattern of back loop half double crochets until the number of rows reaches the desired width of your collar. An important note for the project is you want to make sure the end of your collar ribbing is in a multiple of 5. So here I ended up with a total of 50 ribbed rows. So this could end in 55 or 60 or any multiple of 5. When you reach your desired width, we're going to slip stitch the 2 ends together. So I'll insert my crochet hook into the first loop and then insert it into the back loop, the other side, yarn over and pull through all of the loops. And we'll repeat this all the way across. So I have a total of 10 slip stitches for my collar because I originally chained 11 and the chain 1 reduces our count by 1 stitch. So I'll insert a slip stitch into each chain all the way across. After stitching both ends of the collar, you want to turn your work inside out so that the sweater is facing the outside. And at this point, you can put this around the base of your neck to see if it fits the way you want. For this first round, we're going to be working along the sides of the ribbing. We're going to do 2 double crochets into the side of every ribbed row, and this will create the circle or yoke shape. Because I did a total of 50 rows, I'm going to need 100 stitches for this first round. So if you did 60 rows, you would need 120, and 55 rows, 110, and so forth. So you can see I started by chaining 2, and I'm going to take this tail of yarn and work it into my stitches. And then we're going to do our first double crochet into this same stitch that I did my chain 2. This part might be a little difficult because there aren't exactly perfect stitches to work into, but it will get easier as you go around. So after inserting my hook, I'm gonna yarn over and do a double crochet, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2. I'll work another double crochet into the side of the ribbing, yarn over, insert the crochet hook, grab the loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that's 2 in that first side of the ribbing, and now the other side we'll do another 2 double crochets. Continue adding 2 double crochets into the sides of the ribbing. Feel free to slow this part down if it gets confusing on where you're supposed to be inserting your crochet hook. So I'll keep making my way around until I have twice the amount of stitches as the ribbed rows. So for mine, once again, I have 50 ribbed rows, and I want to make sure I end with 100 stitches total. Here's my progress so far, and I'll see you at the end of 100 rows. Slip stitch into the first stitch we made in the beginning of the row. Here's what the collar should look like after round 1, and it should lay flat if you open it. So now we're going to increase the size of this yoke by adding more stitches in each round. For round 2, we'll start by chaining 2 and then insert a double crochet into the same stitch. To demonstrate how to increase each row, I'll insert this chart to help out. So I started with 50 ribbed rows, and in round 1 I had 100 stitches. So what I'll do is drop the 0 at the end, and in round 2 I'm going to do 2 double crochets in every 10th stitch that I have. So that would represent an increase. And then in round 3 we'll do 2 double crochets in every 11th stitch. And we'll continue the pattern of adding increases into this yoke until you reach your desired width. And the width is measured from one shoulder to the other, so because I have more broad shoulders, I'll add more increases to my rounds. So once you have an understanding of increasing, we'll do a double crochet all the way until we reach the 10th stitch of the round. I've reached the 10th stitch of my round. And now we're going to do 2 double crochets into the stitch. So I'll insert 1 double crochet, and back into that same stitch we'll do another double crochet. Here's what the increase looks like. The 2 posts make a V shape, so that's how you know you've done an increase. After increasing, I'll start my count over and do double crochets until I reach the next 10 stitch. I've made it to the next increase. I'll insert the hook and do 2 double crochets into that stitch. Here's my first one and the second one. So continue adding an increase in every 10th stitch until we make it to the end of the round. After my last increase, I have 10 stitches remaining, so I'll do a double crochet in each stitch until the end of the round. Slip stitch into the first stitch we made in the round. I use a stitch marker each round to help me locate that stitch. We've done a total of 2 rounds, and this is what your yoke should look like so far. In round 3, we'll start by chaining 2 again and insert a double crochet into that same stitch. I'm going to add my stitch marker back into that first stitch. Insert a double crochet in each stitch until you reach the 11th stitch in your round. The nice part about this pattern is if you lose count along the way, you can look for the increase you did last round, and that's where you're going to place your increase for the next round. I've made it to the 11th stitch in the round, and you can see this is our increase from last round. So we'll do 2 double crochets in that stitch. This is the first double crochet, and then back in the same stitch, we'll do the next double crochet. And now we've added an increase on top of the increase. Continue to double crochet until you reach the next 11th stitch. Here we are at the next increase. Once again, I'll do 2 double crochets into that stitch. This is how you're essentially going to increase every single round to increase the size of the yoke. So you'll do 2 double crochets into the center of the last round's increase. At the end of round 3, I have 10 stitches remaining, so I'll do a double crochet until the end of the row. We'll slip stitch into the first stitch we made in the round. Here's a view of my yoke, and I'm going to continue to increase until I reach 14 rounds total. I'm coming up to the end of my yoke, and I did about 14 rounds of increases. Slip stitch to join the round. So for reference, I stopped increasing rounds until I reached around 250 stitches. Here's a view of the inside of the yoke when you lay it flat. If you look closely on your yoke, you can see these lines that create sections, and I have about 10 different points. So if we count, we have one section here. This is the second one, the third one, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9, and then the 10th one. And we're going to use each of these points to section off our armholes and the body panels. First, we're going to start with the front panel, so chain 2. And then insert a double crochet into the same stitch. I'm going to insert a double crochet in each stitch until I reach the 3rd increase from the last round, or the end of the 3rd section. I'm coming up at the end of my first section, so I'll insert a double crochet into that increase from last round. And now we'll do a double crochet all the way up until we reach the end of the 2nd section. At the end of my 2nd section, once again, I'll do a double crochet into that increase from last round. And we have one section remaining, so I'll do a double crochet all the way until the end of the 3rd section. I've made it to the last stitch in the 3rd section, so yarn over and insert a double crochet into that increase from last round. Once you finish a total of 3 sections, this is my first one, 2nd, and 3rd, then the next 2 sections, sections 4 and 5, are going to accommodate the first armhole. So you can see that we have 2 sections here, and we're going to fold in between those sections, and this is where the sweater will sit on our shoulders. So I'm just going to fold this part and then turn it. For this next part of the sweater, we're going to be chaining the length that goes underneath the armpit. So I'll chain 15 here, but you can make this longer or shorter. But keep in mind not to make it too tight or it's going to be pretty uncomfortable when you wear it. I'm chaining 15. After making your chain, you want to flip your work over, and we're going to be slip stitching our chain into the other side of the panel. And to find where you're going to insert your crochet hook, you want to line up these sections with the increases. So I'm lining up my increases here, and we're going to do a slip stitch into the stitch next to the increase. So you can see we skipped 2 whole sections, and we're going to line this up and slip stitch into not the stitch where the increase is, but the one next to it. So I'll insert my hook there. So just grab your yarn and slip stitch. After slip stitching our chain, we'll chain 2, and then we're going to work a double crochet in that same stitch. And you want to continue double crocheting for a total of 3 sections. So we'll do 1 section here, and then 2 and 3, and this will represent the back panel, and then we'll work on creating our second armhole. I finished double crocheting my first section, and as we did in the last few sections, we're going to end with double crocheting into that increase, and then we'll begin section 2. Now I've done 2 full sections, and I'll go ahead and do my 3rd section now. I've reached the end of my 3rd section, so I'm inserting that last double crochet. And now we're going to start our second armhole. We'll chain 15 to start the second armhole. We're going to repeat what we did for the first armhole, so I'll take the sweater and flip this over. And then you're going to slip stitch your chain into the first stitch that we made in the round. So I'll insert my crochet hook there. Gonna move my yarn underneath so it's easier to slip stitch. Slip stitch to join the round. At this point, this is what my sweater looks like so far with the armholes and the increases. For this next round, we'll start by chaining 2, double crochet in the same stitch, and now double crochet all the way across until we reach the first arm chain. Now we'll work a double crochet into each of these chains. So I'll insert my crochet hook into that first chain. Continue double crocheting until you reach the end of the chain. After 15 double crochets, I'm going to do a double crochet into the top stitch of this row. But before I do that, to avoid a big hole later, I'm gonna insert my crochet hook into this tiny hole right here, and then insert it into the top stitch and pull through both of those. And this way we can make sure that the arm area is secure. So now that that's closed up, we can continue working our double crochets until we reach the second arm chain. So I'll insert the double crochet into the next stitch and keep going. I'm at my second arm chain, so I'll continue to do double crochets into these next 15 chains. At the end of the round, we're going to insert our hook into that little hole and then slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. Now we'll chain 2 and continue working double crochets into every stitch until we reach the middle of the body. So we're going to be starting the body portion now. So we'll do a double crochet in each stitch until we reach about halfway of the length that we want our sweater to be. I've reached the halfway point and I've done a total of 11 rounds, and now we're going to be decreasing the body. So here I have 11 rounds of my body, and we're going to start curving in the sweater by decreasing the stitches so that we have a tighter look at the bottom. So I'll start by chaining 2, and we'll do a regular double crochet into that same stitch. I'm going to work a double crochet until I reach the first corner of my sweater. If we take a look at the left side of the sweater, we're going to stop our double crochet right up until we reach the last 4 stitches up in that corner, and that's where we're going to place 2 decreases. So I made it to those last 4 stitches, and we're going to do 2 decreases in that corner. To make our decrease, we're going to yarn over and insert our crochet hook and yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then we're going to yarn over again and insert our crochet hook into the second stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, and then finally yarn over, pull through all 3. So that's the first decrease. And we'll do the same thing in the next 2 stitches. So yarn over, insert the hook, pull through 2, and yarn over, insert crochet hook into the next stitch, pull through 2, and pull through all 3 loops. So I did 2 decreases there, and it doesn't have to be perfectly near the edge, but as long as you have 2 decreases in that corner, then you should be okay. So I'll continue to do a double crochet until I reach the second corner or the right side of the sweater. I'm at the other side of the sweater and I have 4 stitches that I left to do our decreases in. I'll start by inserting the hook into the first stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then insert my hook in the second stitch, pull through 2, and pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert the hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, insert in the next stitch, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3 loops. So there's my 2 decreases. And you should have a few stitches remaining, so just do a regular double crochet until you reach the end of the round. Slip stitch in our first stitch to join the round. As you work your decrease rounds, you'll start to notice the sweater is slightly curving in. I'll continue to do 10 more rounds of decreases, so to start my next round I'm going to chain 2, and we're going to just work a double crochet into each stitch until we reach that same corner that we did our last 2 decreases in. I've made it to the first side of the sweater, and once again we'll do 2 decreases in the next few stitches. So I'll insert my crochet hook and do the first decrease. And here's my second one. Then double crochet until you reach the other side. At the other side, so now I'll do 2 decreases. And finally double crochet until you reach the end of the round. slip stitch to join. Continue adding 2 decreases in each side until your sweater reaches the bottom part of your stomach. If you want to leave it more flared, you can add less decreases, and if you want the sweater to curve a little faster, you can add more decreases in each round as well. About halfway through your decrease rounds, you'll start to notice there's no stitches left to decrease in at the end of the round, so we're going to do 2 decreases at the start of each round. I'll chain 2 and then place 2 decreases in the first few stitches of the round. After a few rounds of decreases, you can start to try on your sweater and see if it curves at the rate that you want it to, and depending on that, you can add or remove more decreases. I made it to the end of 9 rounds of decreases. Now we'll start the ribbing at the bottom of the sweater, and this part is completely optional if you don't want your sweater to have a tighter fit. I'll start by chaining 11. You can make this part shorter or longer depending on how long you want the ribbing at the bottom of the sweater to be. So like we did with the collar, we're going to do half double crochets in each chain all the way across. I'm going to count this to make sure I have 10 half double crochets. Now I'll slip stitch into the first stitch that we would have started the round in, so we'll slip stitch into here and pull through. And to decrease the number of rib rows, I'm going to do another slip stitch in the next 2 stitches to decrease. So to do this, I will insert my crochet hook into the first stitch and pull the loop through, and then insert into the next stitch, pull through all 3 loops. And instead of chaining 1, that will start our next round. So once we do that, we can turn our work. Just like the collar, we'll do a half double crochet in the back loops only. So we'll yarn over and do a half double crochet in each chain all the way across. I'm at my last back loop, and I'll do a half double crochet in here, and then we'll chain 1 and turn our work. Continue to work back loop half double crochets all the way until you reach the other end, and then we can close the ribbing. I made it to the very end, and I'm doing my last slip stitch to join the ribbing to the body of the sweater. And now we're going to stitch both of these together. So like we did with the collar, insert your crochet hook into the front loop and pick up the back loop on the other side and slip stitch all of that together. Continue to slip stitch until you reach the end of the row. I've completed my last slip stitch in the ribbed rows, and now I'll yarn over and pull through to fasten off, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail that we can weave in. I like to tie a little knot, not too tight, to make sure that the yarn doesn't come undone. This is a preview of my sweater, and now I'll start on the sleeves. To start the sleeves, I want the seam to be hidden on the sleeve, so we're going to work starting at the bottom, and to attach the yarn, we'll insert our crochet hook into the center of the 15 double crochets that we did earlier. Now grabbing a tail of yarn, I'm going to attach this by pulling through that first stitch and chaining 2. For this first round, I'm going to do double crochets all the way around the sleeve. So I'll insert my crochet hook into that same stitch, do a double crochet. For this first round, there won't be perfect stitches to work into, so try your best to pick up a double crochet in each stitch. I'm also weaving in my tail as I double crochet around the sleeve hole. So repeat this all the way around until you reach the end of the round. When you reach the end, we'll slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. For the next 5 rounds, we're going to work decreases, so I'll start by chaining 2, And we're going to do a double crochet all the way until we reach the corners of the sleeves. So this is one corner right here, and then my other corner on the other side. So we're going to insert 2 decreases when we reach those corners. I reached the first corner and I'm going to start my 2 decreases. And now double crochet until you reach the next corner. At the next corner, I'll do 2 decreases. And with the few stitches remaining, you'll do a regular double crochet until the end of the row. Slip stitch to join the round. We'll continue to do 2 decreases in each corner until we reach 5 rounds. So I did 1 round and I have 4 more. But before you reach 5 total rounds, I'll meet you at the beginning of round 4 to show you how to keep a straight seam. So this is optional, but a trick for every 4th round is to start by chaining 2 as normal, and then we're going to skip doing a double crochet in the first stitch and instead doing it in the second stitch. So what this will do is force the seam to move towards the left instead of continuing on the right. So the first stitch that you skip will become the last stitch in that round. So you can repeat this in every 4th round until the end of the sleeve. So after doing this, I'll continue to work the decreases in round 4. So like I mentioned earlier, to finish round 4, the stitch that we skipped is what we're going to do our last double crochet into. And that stitch can be found underneath the chain 2 that we did in the beginning. So right here, insert your crochet hook and pull through and do a double crochet, and then slip stitch into the first stitch. Made it to the end of 5 rounds of decrease. Now I'll slip stitch to join the round. If you want the sleeve to fit more tight, you can add more rounds of decreases, but I'm going to leave it as it is. And now we're going to do double crochet in each stitch until the end of round 26. And the number of rows may look different depending on how long or short you want to make your sleeve. To start that sleeve, we'll chain 2 and do a double crochet in each stitch all the way around. The end of 26 rounds, here's what my sleeve looks like so far. And for these last 3 rounds, we're going to do decreases. So to start round 27, we'll do decreases in 4 different points. So right here, this corner, the middle, and the other corner. So I'll chain 2. I'll do a regular double crochet in the first stitch, followed by 2 decreases in this first point. And at my next point, I'll do 2 decreases again. Made it around to the middle and inserting 2 decreases here. At my last corner, I'm going to do 2 decreases. With the stitches remaining, you'll just do a regular double crochet until the end of the row. Repeat doing a decrease in 4 points for one more round, and at the end of those 2 rounds, this is what your sleeve should look like, and you can keep it flared or you can continue to do one more round of decreases. For this final round, I'll chain 2 and do a decrease in every other stitch. So I'll start off with a normal double crochet, followed by a decrease in the next. And you'll just repeat this all the way around until you reach the end of the round. Coming up at the end of the round, I'll do my final decrease and then a double crochet, and we'll slip stitch to join the round. This is what the sleeve looks like without the ribbing at the end. You can choose to leave it like this if you prefer, but I'm going to add a ribbing. To start the ribbing around the wrist, we'll chain 11, half double crochet in the second chain from the hook, and place 1 half double crochet in each chain all the way until the end. Slip stitch into that stitch. To decrease the amount of ribbed rows, I will do another slip stitch in the following 2 stitches. Then turn your work and repeat doing a half double crochet in the back loop only until the end of the round. Chain 1 and turn your work, and we're just going to repeat doing a back loop, half double crochet until we reach the other side of the ribbed rows. I'm at the final slip stitch, so I'll insert my hook and pull through. And then we're going to close this ribbing, so we'll slip stitch along the front and back loops. Insert your hook in the front loop and grab the back, and continue to do 10 slip stitches all the way across. I've reached the end of the slip stitches, and now I'll yarn over and fasten off. Cut off the tail of yarn and pull it through. And repeat the same pattern to complete the second sleeve on your sweater. For this next part, I'm just going to weave in the loose ends. To weave in, you can turn your sweater inside out or just insert it inside the sleeve here. And I'll poke it through to pull it through. For smaller strands of yarn, I like to take my crochet hook and tuck it into the inside of the project. I'll repeat the same thing to weave in the tail at the bottom of the sweater. Can weave in a few times to make sure that the yarn is nice and secure and it won't come out. And here's the final product. I really hope you enjoyed making this sweater, and please like, comment, and subscribe if this tutorial was helpful. I'll see you next time.